My name is Melissa Carter, and I thought I had my life in control. I worked hard, saved my money, and never once relied on anyone to clean up my messes. But one Tuesday morning, everything came crashing down with a single phone call. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Hello, Miss Carter. We're calling regarding your delinquent mortgage account. The amount past due is $524,000. When can we expect payment? I froze. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. Mortgage account? $500,000? There must be a mistake, I stammered. I don't own a house. I never signed a mortgage. The collector's voice was cold and professional. The documents are in your name, ma'am. Unless you want us to proceed with foreclosure and legal action, you'll need to settle this immediately. I hung up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. $500,000 debt in my name? This had to be identity theft, right? I grabbed my laptop, logged into my credit report, and within minutes, my stomach dropped. There it was. A $524,000 mortgage tied to my social security number. Payments already months behind. And my name, Melissa Carter, right on the loan documents. But the signature wasn't mine. I wanted to scream.
To cry.
But first, I needed answers. And the first person I thought to call was my mom. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Did you or Dad do something with my name, like, I don't know, co-sign a loan? Silence. That awful silence where you already know the answer before they say a word. Finally, she sighed. Melissa, we didn't think it would come to this. Your sister needed help. The bank wouldn't give her the loan alone. So, we added your name. My blood ran cold. You what? It's just until she gets back on her feet, my mom rushed on. You know how Sarah has struggled. She wanted a home of her own, a fresh start. You're so responsible, Melissa. We knew you'd understand. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest.
Sarah.
Of course. My older sister. The golden child who never held a job for more than 6 months, always drowning in debt, always calling home for bailouts. And now, thanks to my parents, I was legally chained to her disaster. Understand? My voice cracked with fury. You put a $500,000 mortgage in my name without telling me. Do you have any idea what this does to me? My credit? My life? We're family, my mom said weakly. Family helps each other. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Family.
Right.
Funny how family only seemed to mean me cleaning up Sarah's messes. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, tears soaking my pillow. My parents had betrayed me. My sister had ruined me. And the bank. They didn't care. It was my name on those papers. To them, I was nothing more than a debtor. But somewhere between heartbreak and rage, a new feeling began to grow inside me. Resolve. If they thought they could dump this mountain of debt on me, they were wrong. If Sarah thought she could live in a $500,000 house while I carried the weight of her loan, she was dead wrong. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about betrayal. About being used. About justice. So I made myself a promise that night. I would get my life back. I would make Sarah and my parents face the consequences of what they had done. And when I was finished, none of them would ever look at me as the responsible one they could take advantage of again. The next morning, I walked into the bank to request every document related to the loan. My hands didn't shake anymore. My voice didn't crack. I was calm, determined, because I knew something Sarah and my parents didn't. You can betray me. You can lie to me. But if you do, I'll make sure you regret it. And this time, my revenge wouldn't just be sweet, it would be devastating. The bank manager was a stiff man in a gray suit, his expression unreadable as he slid the loan documents across the polished oak desk toward me. Here are the originals, Ms. Carter. As you can see, your name appears as the primary co-signer on this mortgage. I picked up the papers with trembling hands. My signature, except it wasn't mine. It was a clumsy imitation, the kind that might fool a banker rushing through paperwork, but not me. The curves were wrong, the strokes too heavy. That's not my signature, I said firmly. He glanced at me, clearly unimpressed. Well, ma'am, unless you can prove forgery, our records stand. I wanted to scream. Prove forgery? How was I supposed to prove something I hadn't even known about until yesterday? Can I get copies of all of this? I asked instead. Of course. But I should warn you, the loan is already delinquent. Foreclosure proceedings are pending. If your family doesn't pay up, this will ruin your credit. My family. The words made bile rise in my throat. I walked out of the bank with a thick stack of documents clutched in my arms and fire in my chest. Sarah had done this. My parents had helped her do this. And now they wanted me to quietly accept it? Not this time. That evening, I drove straight to Sarah's house, the house my name was now chained to. It was a sprawling two-story suburban home with a perfectly manicured lawn and a brand-new SUV in the driveway. My jaw clenched. $500,000 of luxury, bought on my future. Sarah opened the door in silk pajamas, a glass of wine in her hand. Melissa, what a surprise. Her fake smile faded when she saw the folder of documents in my hand. You forged my name, I said, my voice icy. She didn't even bother denying it. She just rolled her eyes and stepped aside. Come in. Don't be so dramatic. Inside, the house reeked of fresh paint and expensive furniture. Every piece screamed new money. My stomach turned. Dramatic. I snapped. You signed a $500,000 mortgage with my name. Do you have any idea what that means for me? My credit score, my future? Sarah sipped her wine like she was at a spa.
Relax, Mel.
It's not like you were using your credit anyway. You rent. You don't even want a house. I'm the one who needed it. And Mom and Dad said it would be fine. The casual arrogance in her voice made my blood boil. You think it's fine to steal from me? To put me on the hook for your luxury lifestyle? What happens when you can't pay? Because I already saw the delinquency notices, Sarah. You're months behind. She flinched, just for a moment, but then shrugged it off. I'll catch up. You worry too much. That's why Mom and Dad wanted you involved, because you're stable, responsible. You'll figure something out if it comes to that. That was the moment the last thread of sisterly love snapped inside me. I stood there in her shiny, stolen palace, and I realized something. Sarah didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel sorry. She expected me to carry her, the way I always had. But not this time. You've made a huge mistake, I said quietly. Because I'm not cleaning this up for you. In fact, I'm going to make sure the world knows exactly what you did. She laughed, an ugly, mocking sound. Oh, please. What are you going to do?
Swimming?
You'd never drag Mom and Dad into this. You'd never go public. You care too much about your precious reputation. Her words hit me like a challenge. She was daring me to act. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. I went home and spread the documents across my kitchen table. I photographed every page, highlighted every forged signature, and began a timeline. Emails from my parents, texts from Sarah, bank notices, everything. The more I gathered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a mistake. This was fraud, criminal fraud, and my parents had been complicit in it. That night, I drafted an email to an attorney recommended by a colleague, then another to a financial crimes investigator, and finally, one to a journalist who had once covered a major forgery scandal in our city. If Sarah thought I wouldn't fight back, she was dead wrong. I closed my laptop with a sharp click and whispered into the silence of my apartment. They wanted to use my name. Now, I'll make sure they remember it. The following week was a blur of meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. My attorney, Mr. Daniels, sat across from me in his downtown office, flipping through the folder of documents I'd collected. This, he said, tapping the forged signature with his pen, is a clear case of fraud. If you never gave consent, they committed a serious crime. The problem is your parents were involved. Are you prepared for that? I swallowed hard. The question hit me like a punch. Was I ready to burn the bridge to my own family? Yes, I said firmly. They didn't just make a mistake. They ruined my life without asking. If I don't fight back, I'll be paying for this for the rest of my life. He nodded slowly. Then we'll start with two things. First, We'll file a fraud report with the bank. Second, we'll open a criminal complaint with the State Financial Crimes Unit. Once we get the ball rolling, it'll get messy. Messy. That was an understatement. The first explosion came at Sunday dinner. I showed up at my parents' house uninvited, legal notices in hand. My father looked up from carving the roast chicken, confusion flashing in his eyes. "Melissa? What's all this?" I dropped the envelope on the table. "It's a fraud complaint. Against Sarah. And against both of you, for helping her." My mother gasped. Sarah, seated at the head of the table like some kind of queen, smirked. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I already did," I shot back. "The bank, the state investigators, even a journalist. You think you can sign my name and trap me in $500,000 of debt? Think again." My father's face turned red. "Melissa, how could you go outside the family with this? We could have worked it out privately." "Privately?" My voice rose. "You lied to me. You stole from me. You let Sarah use me like a safety net. There's nothing private about that. You turned me into collateral for her laziness." Sarah slammed her wine glass down, liquid splashing across the tablecloth. "You're just jealous. I finally have something nice, and you can't stand it. You've always been bitter, hiding in your little apartment while I actually live." Live. I spat the word like poison. On my credit? On forged documents with my name? That's not living, Sarah. That's stealing. The shouting match went on until my father ordered me out of the house. "If you go through with this, Melissa, don't bother coming back. You won't have a family anymore." I looked at him, my chest tight but my resolve unshaken. If this is what family means, I don't need it. I left without looking back. The days that followed were brutal. My phone buzzed constantly with angry calls and texts. My parents begged, guilt-tripped, even threatened to cut me out of their will. Sarah blasted me on social media, painting me as a heartless sister destroying her family for money. Old friends messaged me asking what was going on, some siding with her, others with me. But for every insult, every dagger they threw my way, I pushed harder. Mr. Daniels filed the fraud report. Investigator Alvarez from the State Crimes Unit contacted me for an interview. The journalist, a sharp woman named Rebecca, requested copies of the documents for a potential feature story on family fraud scandals. The noose was tightening around Sarah's shiny little empire, and she knew it. One night, around midnight, she showed up at my apartment. Her makeup was smeared, her hair a mess. "Melissa," she begged at my doorstep, "don't do this. If you take this to court, I'll lose everything. The house, my credit, my future. Please, we're sisters." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered the bank's cold voice demanding payment. The sick feeling in my stomach when I saw my forged signature. My parents' betrayal. "You should have thought of that before you signed my name," I said quietly, and closed the door in her face. The next morning, I learned she'd drained the last of her savings trying to make partial payments on the mortgage, desperate to stall foreclosure. But it was too late. The system was already in motion. My revenge wasn't complete yet, but I could see the cracks forming. Sarah's perfect life was beginning to crumble. And soon, the whole world would watch it fall. The story hit the local news on a Wednesday evening. Family mortgage fraud exposed. Sister's name used without consent, blared across the television screen as I sat frozen on my couch. Rebecca, the journalist I had shared everything with, had pieced the story together perfectly. Images of the forged documents flashed on screen. My signature, side by side with the sloppy forgery. The anchor's voice was steady, almost clinical. Sources confirmed that Melissa Carter discovered her name had been added to a $524,000 mortgage without her knowledge, allegedly by her parents to support her older sister Sarah Carter's home loan. They blurred out my face, but not Sarah's. The camera caught her storming into her SUV, barking at reporters. My parents declined to comment, but the damage was done. The truth was out. That night, my phone blew up. Some messages were supportive. "Good for you, Melissa. Standing up for yourself." Others were vicious. "How could you humiliate your family on TV?" But I didn't care. For once, people were finally seeing Sarah for who she really was. The next day, Investigator Alvarez called. "Melissa, the bank and state authorities have completed their review. It's conclusive. Your signature was forged. Charges of fraud and falsification of financial documents are moving forward. Sarah Carter is the primary suspect." My knees went weak, but I steadied myself against the counter. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. By Friday morning, Sarah's house, the $500,000 palace built on my stolen credit, was swarming with reporters and process servers. The foreclosure notice was nailed to her door in bold, red letters. Her shiny new SUV was towed away by the bank. I watched the footage online with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. This was my sister, my own blood, but she had done this to herself. Then came the family explosion. My mother showed up at my apartment, eyes puffy from crying. "Melissa, please.
Drop this.
Sarah is going to lose everything. The humiliation, the debt, it's too much." I stood tall, my voice steady. She should have thought about that before she stole from me. "And you? You let her do it. You helped her." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "We just wanted to help her have a chance. She's always struggled. You're strong, Melissa. We thought you could handle it." I shook my head. "You didn't give me a chance to choose. You decided my life was less valuable than Sarah's comfort. You broke my trust." She left without another word. That night, Sarah called me from a block number. Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual arrogance. "Melissa, they're charging me. I could go to jail.
Please.
You have to help me. I'm your sister." I closed my eyes, the weight of years pressing down. The lies, the favoritism, the way I was always expected to clean up her messes while she lived without consequences.
No, Sara, y whisperat.
I'm not your safety net anymore. You made this bed. Now you're the one who has to lie in it. The silence on the line stretched, then broke into sobs. But I didn't let them sway me. I hung up. The climax came a week later in court. Sarah stood before the judge, her once polished appearance replaced by hollow eyes and trembling hands. The charges were read: fraud, forgery, falsification of documents. My parents sat behind her, pale and shaken. When the judge asked if I wished to make a statement, I stood. "I didn't choose this fight," I said, my voice echoing in the courtroom. "It was forced on me when my name was stolen, when my trust was broken by the people closest to me. This isn't just about money, it's about accountability, about betrayal, and about standing up when you're treated like nothing more than a tool." The judge nodded. "Well said, Miss Carter." Sarah was sentenced to probation, mandatory financial counseling, and restitution payments. The house was seized by the bank. Her credit was destroyed. For the first time in her life, Sarah was forced to face consequences she couldn't charm or cry her way out of. And as I walked out of that courtroom, the autumn air crisp against my skin, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. After the courtroom dust settled, I walked out into the daylight feeling like the world had shifted beneath my feet. For months, I had lived in a fog of betrayal, anger, and confusion.
But now,
the chains had been broken. Sarah was no longer untouchable. For once in her life, she was accountable for her actions. My parents could no longer deny what they had done either. And me? I wasn't the quiet, compliant daughter anymore. I was someone who had fought back and won. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I mourned. I mourned the family I thought I had, the trust one once placed in my parents, the sister I had hoped would one day grow up and stand beside me instead of against me. Every holiday, every childhood memory felt tainted now. Like I had been living inside a pretty picture frame that hid rot underneath. But on the other hand, I felt alive, powerful,
free.
The foreclosure of Sarah's house was finalized within a month. She had to move into a small apartment downtown. Her social media, once filled with pictures of champagne brunches, expensive vacations, and luxury handbags, went silent. The queen bee of our family was humbled, living on a fraction of what she once flaunted. Meanwhile, I started to rebuild my own life. The first thing I did was repair my credit. It wasn't easy, but thanks to the legal proof of forgery, the fraudulent mortgage was removed from my name. Slowly, my financial record cleared. I opened a new account, started saving, and even took a financial literacy course to make sure I was never blindsided again. Next, I invested in myself. I had always dreamed of starting my own graphic design business, but I'd held myself back, partly because of the financial risks, and partly because I never believed I was allowed to put myself first. That changed. I rented a small studio space, bought new equipment, and launched my own website. Within 6 months, I had more clients than I ever expected. For the first time, my work was mine, not overshadowed by Sarah's needs or my parents' expectations. But the biggest change wasn't material. It was inside me. I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped letting guilt control me. I stopped waiting for validation from people who had shown me I wasn't their priority. My parents tried to mend things. My mom called often, asking if I'd come to Sunday dinner. My dad sent awkward texts about the weather, clearly too ashamed to talk about the truth. I didn't cut them off completely, but I set boundaries. If I come, I told my mom one evening, we don't talk about Sarah. We don't pretend nothing happened. And you don't guilt me into fixing what you broke. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be honest. No more secrets. She hesitated, but finally agreed. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As for Sarah, she avoided me for months. Then one day, she showed up at my studio. She looked nothing like the sister I remembered. Her hair was messy, her clothes plain, her face tired. I came to say, "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was entitled to everything. I thought you'd always clean up my mess. I was wrong." I studied her carefully, trying to decide if she meant it. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But either way, I realized something important. I didn't need her apology. "Sarah," I said softly, "I hope you figure out your life. But I can't carry you anymore. Not ever again." She nodded, eyes brimming with tears, and left. That was the last time I saw her. And honestly, I was okay with that. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Revenge doesn't always look like screaming, or breaking things, or even cutting people down. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is refusing to let the people who wronged you define who you are. I had taken back control of my life. I had made Sarah and my parents face the consequences of their choices. But most importantly, I had built something stronger out of the wreckage. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the quiet, overlooked daughter. I see Melissa Carter, a survivor, a fighter, a woman who refused to be a victim. And that, to me, was the sweetest revenge of all. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted the most, remember, your strength doesn't come from their approval. It comes from standing up for yourself, no matter how hard it is. Don't let anyone steal your voice, your choices, or your future. That's the greatest revenge. Thank you for watching this story until the end. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more powerful revenge stories like this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Revenge Files, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Your support means everything.